Hey everybody, welcome back to the Gold Mine. We have another fantastic show for you guys planned out today, and I am stoked. We got two new faces today. We got both Mick and Jason here, and Shaun, as always, I am stoked. Now, while I am stoked, everybody else should be stoked too. Make sure you're doing all the things. Hit the buttons, like the show, subscribe to the channel, hit the notification bells, do all that good stuff. Get your emails whenever we go live, which is, of course, Wednesdays for the Gold Mine and Fridays for the Collective. If you have any thoughts, questions, comments, anything at all, put them up in the comment section. We will hit those throughout the show. Other than that, let's get into some intros. Mick, you're on top. Give me a quick 10 to 15 seconds. Who are you, where you come from, and all that good stuff.
Yeah, Mick Hawks from a small company called Hawks & Co. So your name's got to be Hawks before you can join it. I spent 24 years in the military, 14 years in the SAS. Before that, I was commando forces. Did the Falklands, so I'm sort of fairly old school. I was out, before the Iraq and Afghanistan and all that lot. So a pretty old school, map and compass, bayonet, and get on with it type person. But nice to be invited on the show.
Awesome, love having you here, Jason. How about yourself?
Hey, yeah. 16 years in the military with the Air Force. 12 years in law enforcement here in Missouri. Got out of law enforcement, started doing, I was in the training realm, both military and law enforcement before I got done with those, with the professional life, got out and decided to start doing it on the private side. Got hooked up with a buddy of mine that also has a night vision company. So we kind of combined the two. And so now I just enjoy going out and doing some training with cops and selling some night vision and, working with those guys and hearing their stories and talking to them and trying to get better.
Love it. This is the way, man. Shaun, how's life out in the mountains treating you?
Well, it's kind of cool because much like Mick, I'm a bit old school myself. Mick might be a bit older than I am, and it's not common for the guest to be older than me because I'm the oldie. How old are you, Mick?
27.
Right, so I'm 13. And Jason, on the night vision aspect, I've seen a lot of ads popping up in my Instagram feed about new tech, civilian night vision goggles or night vision gear, and it's come a long way. So maybe after the show, I wouldn't mind having a little chat with you in the green room just to pick your brain on where you see things going. But we'll do that after the show.
Yeah, sounds awesome.
Yeah. You're gonna have a lot of questions thrown at you. Shaun is basically a ninja, so he's down. He's in the game. It's gonna be good. Today we are gonna be getting into character. And before we get into any of the videos I have or anything like that, I want to get your guys' thoughts on character itself. How would you define character? Jason, you're on top. I'm going to hit you first. What do you think?
I knew that was happening. I've watched a few of these. I think the easiest way for me to describe character in the way that I think some of the mentors and people that I've looked at as mentors along the way is, character is kind of a mixed bag of all the things lessons you've learned, experiences you've had, your beliefs about those experiences, and it kind of builds up this, basically, to me, it's kind of who you are, I guess, as the word character. But what it really comes down to is, when there's really, and I know I've heard this somewhere, so I can't take credit for it, but I've always liked it, is when you have nothing left, when there's nothing to help you make a decision, when there's nothing to help you through whatever it is that you're going through, what you have left is your character. I think that, and being able to rely on that with part of being the character being your ethos and your core values, you can kind of dig deep inside that bag. You're in your character and really kind of help get you through. I've been through a lot of tough things, and that's what you have left to kind of help you go through that. When you look around and there's nobody there, there's nothing there. It's definitely something that everybody needs something to look back and say, hey, this is how I'm going to make this decision. This is how I'm going to get through this.
Yeah, I love that. Let's build on it. Mick, what's your definition?
Yeah, I think character is what defines you in character really is how you respond to adversity. You can sink down low, or you can come to the fore. But there's a lot of people, dull as dishwater as we call it over here, with no character whatsoever, and they tend to be in our industry, especially in the SAS. You need bags of character, because it's characters that get you through adversity at the end of the day, and yeah, it's how you are. But you really see it when it comes out under severe adversity. The characters come to the fore.
Yeah. I was thinking that character, it's kind of mercurial almost, like it shifts and it changes, but it's also really uh, evident when it's required. So, Sean, what are your thoughts on this?
Well, I'm much like the guys. I think that, well, I'm going to state that I agree with the guys in one aspect, that our character is who we are. It's made up of our experiences, who we've met, who we listened to, the things we've said, the things they've said. It's kind of like centrally at our core who we are. However, we have character, but then there's that old saying, geez, he's a real character. That dude is a character. Do you remember that time that freaking character did ... So there's who you are, and then there's what the world sees. And we all know there's certain characters out there that are larger than life characters. And so the reason I thought of that, and I hadn't considered it before the show, but it's what Mick said. And I think that, to his point, to be in 22 SAS, I think you've got to have bags of character. And you've not just got to have the character within you, but you've got to be one of the characters. You've got to be larger than life to some degree. That doesn't mean you have to act the joker or the jester or the fool, but you got to show up, and you've got to have presence, but a presence bigger than your footprint. So there's character inside, and then there's, geez, he's a character.
I'm liking where this is going to be going on this one. I'm stoked. Now, let's get right into one of the videos that I have here, because I think it's kind of the at least in my mind, where character starts. So we're gonna watch this, and then we're gonna get some thoughts. Here we go.
As for assessing someone's character is to look at the character of their friends and their associates.
Yeah.
And while people can put up a mask themselves for their character, their friends and associates will not. And so you can judge someone's character by their friends and associates, and to some degree by their enemies.
Right.
If evil people hate you, well, you might be doing something right.
It's a good place to start. Mick, what do you think?
Yeah, interesting. Because we see it in the military where, fantastic comrades and everything else. But as soon as you leave the military and you're in the commercial world, that changes somewhat massively. And the character that you thought was a good guy to fight alongside, now that it's money orientated, feeding your family, totally different. Changes very quickly, unfortunately.
That's a great place to start. Jason, thoughts on this?
Yeah, I like that. I like the fact that he said, look at the friends, look at the people that are, that tells me a lot about people that I interact with, especially in the law enforcement world. I was, you kind of want to be quick to form an opinion of somebody, and kind of look at them as who they are as a person, and then maybe take a step back and look at the folks that they choose to put around, because that's the thing, you choose to put those people around you. And somebody somewhere said you're the average of the 5 people you hang out with, or something like that. It's a fairly true statement, but I think that, kind of like with character, like what Shaun said, it's very fluid and very those folks can be changed as your character changes, and they may ultimately help you make those changes. So I really like that, and that's something that I've always tried to, I strive to do is look around and figure out, who follows who and why are they doing it, and is that somebody that I should want to emulate, and is that something that some of the things that they that I'm learning from them, are they good, or are they, what these other people, what do they see in that? And I kind of, I'm introverted by nature, which is weird because of my profession, but I like to kind of sit back and I can usually tell a lot about people very quickly about how they, about their character based on kind of some of the folks that they put around them. So kind of a.
I like it. I like it. It's interesting too. I've noticed a lot of the people that we've had on the show are people watchers. They enjoy watching how people interact with other people in the world, just because you can kind of create pictures of them based on that, because they don't know that you're watching them. Shaun, you got thoughts?
I do, and I agree. We, generally speaking, a lot of our guests are people watchers, but the important distinction is they're not casual people watchers. They are guests who rapidly form a pattern on someone as they watch them. And I'm talking like in a second, 2 seconds, 3 seconds max. Never more than 5 seconds to form a pattern on someone. I form a pattern very, very quickly. That's what I was taught to do. I'm used to it. I like it. Doesn't mean I always get it right, but I form a very fast interpretation. Then I might refine it in the next few seconds, depending on what's happening. So much like Jason said, I like to sometimes sit back and watch the world on a millisecond by millisecond basis and form rapid opinions, but I don't always get it right. And so I'd like to talk about that, because I don't think Elon Musk has got it particularly right either. If you understand his story arc, I mean, what character were we just looking at there? A different character than 12 months ago, that was different 4 years ago, that was different 10 years ago. I've watched his character adjust sometimes on a month-to-month basis. And so if we use Elon as the example, when he closed out his commentary, I believe he said something worse to the effect of, if there's evil people that are kind of fighting against you, then you're probably doing something right. And I'm paraphrasing there. But that's his definition of what evil is. And is he the evil person, or are they the evil person? So he's taking almost not a contrarian perspective, but a they and me. But it's all us. And so the moment that you start framing that if they're doing it wrong, that means I'm doing it right, I don't know. That's not how I see strong character. Strong character stands for what they stand for, but not through the lens of who they are and who they are.
Let's build on that. I think the line went, if evil people hate you, you must be doing something right. So let's dive into that. Mick, you got thoughts on that line?
Yeah, it depends what line of work you're doing. Yeah, in a way, and bear in mind that the security industry that we're all in is actually quite a small industry. And as I always say, you're only as good as your last job, whatever. So, getting on in a world in a certain industry, you have to demonstrate and prove that you're of sound character, because otherwise people just don't want to associate with. And unfortunately, that we see that all too often in the security industry over here in the UK. There's many people that I served with in the military. I would never work with outside, because it's a different world, and people's objectives are different. Taking a stronghold in Afghanistan, for instance, is different to trying to get a contract out of London, and people's characters that were solid over there completely change over here. So it's the people's character. It's very fluid the way it goes around. But as people say, you're only as good as your last job or whatever, like, you know.
That opens up a whole nother line of questioning for me, and I'm going to hit that in a second. Jason, you got any thoughts on this?
No, just I mean, yes, but real quick, you know, I like what Shaun said about, you know, whose perspective are we viewing this from, and what scale are we using to measure, you know, the good and evil, if we're going based off of just exactly what he said. You know, I have, even as a people watcher and having to make assessments of people very quickly, they have changed, but I've also been extremely wrong in many cases. You know, especially when you have people that are being victimized, and you know, people that are having the worst day of their life. When you interact with them, sometimes you know, sometimes you can tell a lot about their character based on how they're dealing with that situation, but you also, you know, you kind of have to look at it maybe from their lens, or from, you know, from their point of view a little bit, to understand, okay, maybe this isn't exactly who they are. And you know, that could be said the same for the people that I've worked with. There's been guys that you know, you think they're going to be superstars when things start happening, and then they're not. And then, you know, the guys that you think, well, this guy really shouldn't be here, all of a sudden comes out of nowhere and surprises you. So you know, the quick assessment is good, but also being able to step back and look at the perspective in which we're making that assessment, I think is pretty important.
That speaks to the ability to detach from your own opinion, in my mind, right? Be able to make that opinion right off the bat and say, okay, well, this person has demonstrated these techniques or these particular attributes in their character, but then in the moment being able to kind of step outside of yourself, at least in my mind, in that. Shaun, you got any thoughts?
Yeah, so what I heard Mick say, and what I've also heard Jason say in loose framing language, is that one of the elements of character is consistency. And so if you're 18 years old signing up into the military, and your career, if it's 20 years long, and you're shooting for the stars, you're trying for the highest levels of service, whatever that means to you, if along that trajectory, if it's a linear trajectory, now you're a predictable, consistent character. People know what to expect from you tomorrow and next year. You'll be better next year, but you'll be predictably better next year. And a keen eye or a seasoned eye will be able to plot someone's character out almost in a linear scale. Now, that doesn't mean that that's what someone should strive for, because I don't think I plotted out linear. I think I plotted out exponential, up and down sometimes. Like my character, in order to do the things that I wanted to do and figure out myself in all of those adverse moments, sometimes I'd have little spikes of, I made a leap forward, but then I kind of made a leap backwards. And so that was me pushing my envelope, pushing my boundaries, and actually being a little inconsistent to better understand how to become consistent. But eventually, I think we all figure it out. If you've got character, good, strong character, you have consistency. So I'm thinking back to Elon, and Elon is a proxy for a number of large personalities that talk about character, but don't demonstrate consistency within their own character. And so I don't think Elon is particularly consistent on how he approaches the world or how he explains himself to the world. He is a bit of a chaotic character. And so I appreciate that. But that doesn't mean it's a positive attribute if you are too chaotic as a character.
This takes us down. Yeah, Jason, what do you got?
Yeah, I just want to throw out an example of what Shaun just said about being predictable and or erratic with your character. And one thing that I found is, now I have 3 kids, and you know, they always talk about the childhood trauma and stuff like that. And one of the biggest contributors is unpredictability in the home. And so I've found myself, when I talk about refining my character, being very intentional about it with my kids in mind. You know, they don't do well when you're unpredictable. So if you're able to kind of show them through what you do the lessons you want them to learn, you know, it goes a long way in helping develop them. And so I say that to say I kind of took that and also used it in my personal and professional life, as far as being intentional about knowing who I am and what, you know, like earlier Shaun mentioned, who I think I am and who everybody else perceives me as. Is I want to try to, you know, move that slider scale and get it to the middle as much as possible, at least so that there is no unpredictability. And like I said, I think that the easiest way for me at least to learn that was trying to develop and help my kids learn who they are and who they want to become.
I really like the concept of seeking the ability to have the two meet up, right? Your personal view of yourself and the way you're presenting to the world. I think that's a great point. Mick, you got any thoughts on any of this?
Yeah, absolutely. And I'm glad Jason mentioned it. Actually, family can massively help. Yeah, and the reason I say that is I'm divorced now, amicably divorced, but purely because we just drifted apart, I suppose. But when I was in the military, and you were doing stuff in Northern Ireland, for instance, and you flew back home, having a family around you is a massive leveler, because you could be doing some one night on a helicopter back to Hereford, and then you're picking the kids up the next morning. And I tell you what, that is a massive leveler, and it keeps you grounded, and it sort of brings everything back to normal. Whereas the single lads would go back to the block, maybe down a pub, have a few drinks, and then dwell on stuff that they'd actually done, and their character can actually change for the worse, because they're thinking about what happened, you know, whenever. Whereas when you've got 4 kids jumping all over your head and, you know, demanding this, that, and the other, and you're playing football outside, it's I think strong family traditions really do help the character of an individual.
I agree with that 100%, and I think that it can also negatively impact it on the same side. Whereas, you know, it's good to have family around if they're supportive and want, you know, that engagement. But at the same time, if you have family that are not supportive or try to get you to act in a specific way based on their preconceived ideas, things like that, it can also take you in a very negative pathway, especially with your character. Shaun, you got any additional points on any of this?
Yeah, I'm glad that the boys brought up that subject. So where I'm at right now with this is, of course, family is important. A good family is important, but maybe now to develop beyond that is calibrating the family and yourself to each other. Irrespective of how strong your character is or how much character you've got, bags of character, too many bags of character can be too much for the family. So it's our job to figure out how many bags we leave in the helicopter and how many bags we take home, and appropriately meld with the family while you're with the family. And that's a trick. It's not like a simple algorithm. It changes year over year. It changes with you, it changes with them. The dynamic is dynamic. And so I think that where it kind of goes wrong, and I'm on my second marriage. My first marriage dissolved during my time with the teams. I think part of the dynamic is understanding that it's our job to manage the dynamic. I was focused on managing my job. I was not focused on the dynamic of the household. And so I wish young Shaun would have done it better, but that's done. Now I'm passing along the message to any young person out there who is in a dynamic career that has a lot of stress, perhaps, when they get home. It is not the family's job to figure you out. It is not your job to figure the family out. It's the job of both to figure out a healthy dynamic.
That is a fantastic point, and I want to get into another video here, but I just want to make sure if there's any other thoughts on that before we move on. Mick or Jason, you guys good to go?
Well, yeah, I must admit, it's for the character itself. I think it's quite important having that switch on and switch off switch, and being able, when to switch it on and when to switch it off. And I think when you come back, I was lucky, and I understand what you were talking about earlier on about if you've got a. I've always had a strong family, if that makes, and they've been very, very supportive. But I know also people that have gone through down the other route and not had a strong family, and that's caused a few dramas. But certainly on my perspective, and I just about every presentation that I give when I'm doing a talk about my career and everything else, talking about the book and blah blah blah. I have a picture of the family, even though I'm sort of divorced as such or separated. I still have a picture at the very end explaining the importance of that family because that family can help you along.
I totally agree with that one. It's nice, not just nice, but it is. I think it's important to highlight the fact that the family is a big part of your character. They're the first developers of it, and they're consistent throughout your life. So such a great point. Now I got another video here. Excuse me, and it goes along, at least in my mind. It kind of speaks to humility a bit, but I want to get you guys' thoughts on it. Here we go.
Have confidence in the fact that you don't know everything and be okay with that. Construction site, right? Most of the foremen on a construction site, they've been doing this for 22 years. Dude, they're freaking confident. So now you take the project manager who's like a college kid that's never run a construction site before, and he shows up, dude, he's lacking confidence.
Yeah.
He's lacking confidence because he's never done this before. Yeah. So what do they need to do? They need to gain confidence. How do they gain confidence? It's the same thing we talked about earlier with gain respect. Work hard, ask good questions. Don't act like you know everything. You don't. Everybody knows you don't. Yeah, I did just graduate. Didn't learn much, but I know looking at you, I can see I'm going to learn a lot from you. How are we going to do this stuff tomorrow? How do you recommend getting this done? All of a sudden, it's like, oh, okay, this guy listens.
Bam. Let's get some thoughts on that. How do you think this confidence and humility applies to character? Jason, I'm going to hit you first. What do you think?
So I think that, kind of like he says it, I think he says it pretty good. I think it kind of goes back to what I was saying with kids is being able to say, I don't know. And let's not just let me get you the answer. It's let's learn the answer together. I think that's the biggest thing. It's one of the things I learned as I became a team leader, with my tactical team and some of the other leadership positions I've had in my career is, there's a lot of people appreciate that. And to them, it says a lot about your character because I've had poor leadership on the other side that, it's let's just make it up as we go along. And sometimes, throwing things in the chili and seeing what it tastes like afterwards doesn't necessarily work out for everybody. So, I think that the humility for me, humility is a big piece of it. And that's a hard one to work on because you feel like you're losing a little bit of confidence, but you're gaining confidence in the people that you're talking to. You're gaining confidence with them if you're able to have that approach and say either I'll figure it out for you or let's figure it out together or let you. He talks about a lot about this on his stuff is. Why don't you figure it out and let me know? And if it's super bad, I'll tell you. And if not, we'll go with it. So I think there's a lot of lessons to be learned with all that.
It's great insight. I like it. Mick, what are you thinking?
Yeah, take away construction, insert officer. and some of the best officers are the ones that have got a bit of humility that come in there just because they're a new Rupert. They don't want to take over the place and this because all the lads below them, you're talking senior sergeants, corporals that have had many years in the military, can actually mold a young officer if he's willing to be molded, if that makes in the right way. and unfortunately, we've seen it too many times where officers come in there because they're straight out of university, so they're not streetwise. All they've done is school, college, university, bang, go and do a sort of 1 year course, and they get their PIP, and they think they're the bee's knees, like, when there's a lot of people below them, not had the privilege of going to college and university, just streets of life, and then straight in the military, and can actually offer much more guidance, really, to someone's career, if you're willing to show a bit of humility. But like I say, we see it all the time in the military. People, the good ones, are the ones that sit back, take advice, are happy to take advice, even to the detriment of themselves, really. They look, put themselves in a position where people slightly take advantage. But that's part of the growing, the growing process of an individual.
Yeah, I always believe that the your character is determined by not just how quickly you can learn, but in my mind, it's the continual openness to learning, at least in my mind. Shaun, you got any thoughts on this?
I don't have much more to add to what the fellas just said, but I will add something more that is it's tangential to some degree, but it kind of is in parallel to this particular point. So when you show up as the young Rupert, the new officer, the new project manager, whatever the case is, and you're attending to a group of individuals who are kind of squared away through experience or longevity in the job, they've already got character in that moment. They are the characters of the moment. Whereas the person who's showing up with very little to offer, I'll loosely phrase that, is showing up with almost no character in that character-filled moment, in context of the fellas or the people who are already there. Now, here's the cautionary tale. And the guys have already said it well. So what I'm saying is a bit different, and it's not to scare anyone, but it is a cautionary tale. If you're the noob who's showing up, try not to talk too much. I mean, have a few questions, try to interact, but I'm advising you right now that every single thing you do is just being hawked. Like birds of prey are watching you. And it might appear casual, but everyone is eyeballing every breath you take and every step you make. If you put your hands in your pockets the wrong way, it's noted. Now, maybe nobody will say anything, but everyone's getting a read on you. So your first point of entry, your first interaction with a new group where you're demonstrating your character, mind your freaking P's and Q's. Do your best to be cool, but not too cool. Have a few things to say, but not too much. Don't try too hard, but you've got to try the right amount. So when someone says, hey, are you the new guy? And you let out your spiel, one of the first things you should be saying is, how can I help? Where's the mop? Now, you don't maybe have to default straight to the mop, because if you say, where's the mop? I want to work like a dog. I want to work for you guys. It's a whole different message. So you've got to read the situation, be prepared to work like a dog by asking the right question to get into the mix with the people who are there who are going to teach you the appropriate character in the moment.
Let's go down this road. I like it. Mick, you got any thoughts on what Shaun just hit up?
Yeah, I was going to say, and so the Delta lads will understand what we're trying to say here. Some of the young lads, new lads that come in to join the SAS, you would expect, nice and quiet, yeah. But some of these new lads that come in have got a massive amount of military experience. They just happen to have, so they may have done 7 years in the Parachute Regiment or the Royal Marines. They do SAS selection, and they're the new boy on the block, if that makes sense. You go away on operations or whatever, and you're doing, planning and operate, and all of a sudden that new guy has actually got a massive amount of experience on the mortars or a fire control unit or whatever. And all of a sudden, you're no longer the new boy. You're now, helping us run this operation, So it's quite an interesting take on how we view the new boy, if that makes sense. And I totally agree with what Shaun said earlier on. Keeping your mouth shut and just getting on with it, and then wait until it's your time to shine. And people know that, or maturity will tell you when it's your time to step to the fore and say, yeah, I can make a major contribution now. Listen to what I say, and if you've got the right people around you, they'll sit back and they'll go, yeah, he's a new guy, but actually he's teaching us something that we didn't know, so it's a mixture of both, I would say.
Yeah, I like that a lot. Jason, you got any additional thoughts on this?
No, they hit it pretty good. It's funny how you're talking about the right amount. What Shaun was talking about is, you get guys that there's a new lieutenant and he's around too much and the guys complain about it, and then he maybe takes a step away, and then they say, well, we never see the lieutenant. Where's he at? What's he doing? What is he doing back there? So to say that the judgment happens, it's real. But some of the best things I've learned in my military career is watching the interaction between a new officer and the senior enlisted guys, even down through the NCO Corps. Watching how that person interacts and watching how that person, assimilates into the group, because there's a very fine line to walk, and it's kind of funny. But as far as being the new guy, I've noticed it with a new generation of folks that are joining the military, and then also, training new guys that are fresh out of the academy joining law enforcement. The change from when I was young to shut up and be the new guy. That has changed completely. And so that, you kind of have to navigate that a little bit and figure out, okay, how do I teach this person to just, learn and kind of start figuring out who it is that you want to start grabbing some of your characteristics from, and instead of just coming in and being the interject yourself and try to be in every conversation, when your place is really just to sit back and be the young guy, be the new guy. I call them young, but some of them aren't so young anymore. But yeah, I think that's one of the challenges that I found, and is dealing with the new generation that, what do you mean I have to be different than everybody else? Well, I'm not asking to be different. I'm just asking to just sit back and be the new guy. Sometimes that's hard. And, it comes back to the humility piece that we were talking about earlier.
Yeah, I could not agree more. And to the point that you guys are both making about soldiers is that there's the beautiful thing about them and the difficult thing about them is that they only hate two things: change and the way things are, right? So it's a challenge managing that and finding the right balance in between. It's a tough one. Now, I got another video here.
I got to throw something in real quick. Yeah, so it's what Jason just threw out there and made me think of it. And so if you are the new person who's coming into an already established situation, whether it's the military or whether it's corporate or whether it's entrepreneurial, doesn't much matter. You're the new person. As you show up, look around and rapidly try to identify who you want to be, or who is going to be your mentor, or what kind of character would you like to choose in your video game to be the thing that you're going to be a few years from now. Look around, find your video character, find your avatar, find the definition of what you want to be in that room. Look at all the instructors, look at all the CEOs, look at all of the entrepreneurial heroes that you've identified, and categorize how you're going to become it. And there's a path for everyone towards it. Last night, quite late, I was working on an equation on something that I've entitled Aura of Mastery. The Aura of Mastery. And so the reason I titled that is because as I was walking in my mind, walking into a new room, I was thinking, how did I pick my first mentor. His name is Ken. He's a Ranger Pathfinder. And very early in my military career, I identified Ken as the man. And I barely knew him. But when I saw him, I knew that he was my guy, my mentor. And he never actively mentored me. He passively mentored me by me watching his every step, when he put his hands in his pockets and when he didn't, and me trying to figure out the whys and the wherefores. And so I believe that there is an aura of mastery with certain people. And it's not that they have a big placard, they're waving it. That isn't the aura. It's how they stand confidently, quietly, own their space, a whole bunch of attributes that I'm not going to list off. The point being, if you enter into a room and try to feel for the mastery in the room, try to rapidly identify who's emanating what you want to be in the future, put a big red flag above their head and start tracking them hard. Every step, every word, every blink. Try to understand how they got to be who they are and how you can become it over time.
That's a fascinating point. I want to see where the boys stand on this one. Mick, you got any thoughts on what Shaun just laid down?
Not really. It's a good point. It's very long-winded. We're old school, if that makes sense. And I keep it simple, stupid, I suppose, with your character and the way you go about it. Mentoring, yeah, I think that is quite important. Picking out the, but I come from SAS background where not one single person has got, is that meant, because everybody's got the same level of competencies and character, and when you're doing different disciplines like undercover work or anti-terrorism or Northern Ireland or whatever, you tend to pick the best out of quite a few people, if that makes sense, rather than and I understand why Shaun was saying it, but for us, it's picking the best out of quite a few people, and so that when you become when you're on SAS selection and you're the instructor, you've got all these different ideas from different people to hopefully pass on to other people, if that makes sense.
Like creating a menagerie of mentors rather than a single
Yeah,
one.
yeah, absolutely, yeah.
That's cool. Jason, you got any thoughts on that?
Yeah, I like both of those. One, finding somebody that really that kind of attracts you and draws you to that. Why are they behaving the way they are, and that aura of mastery. I like that, because I do believe that, and we've all been in the situation where you walk into a room and you see they're like, that's the guy I want to go talk to, and you have a conversation with a master craftsman, somebody who you look at and you can say, this is the guy that knows what I want to learn, and you'll always remember conversations like that if you've had a good conversation with guys like that. And I have a few in my life that I've kind of latched onto, but still good friends with all of them. And I will say that the picking up here and there from everybody that you meet, whether it's, hey, this is something I don't like and I'm not going to do that, or something that I'm going to add to my bag. I will say that the cool thing about having somebody that you're able to, get close with on a professional level, and then develop a friendship, is the things about that person that you may not necessarily like. Say there's 90% of it is, hey, I want to be like this guy, but not so much this. I found it easier as you go to develop that relationship to say, maybe there's a reason for that particular behavior, or that piece of their character that is the way it is. So as you kind of pick things up as you go along, I think that's good, but also being able to get to a point where you can talk with that person, and maybe it's you for the first time in their life calling them out on something that they have wrong with their character, and they don't have a reason for it, but they're able to say, well, that's I never knew that about myself, and maybe that's something I need to work on. So I think that's cool to get to that point where you can, kind of dig deeper on some of those things, and then also it kind of helps you with yours as well. So.
I like that, seeking blind spots. This is cool. Shaun, you got any thoughts on that?
Yeah, it's something that Mick said, and I'll try to explain myself a little bit better, not to defend my position, but to outline, generally as I see it, the sequence of events. And so when I went from the regular line infantry, Princess Patricia's Canadian Light Infantry, I went to the commando. And the first guy I met who stood out as an aura of mastery was kind of like on day one. Again, his name is Ken, Ranger Pathfinder. And I was a nothing. I'd only been in the Army 2 years. I was a nobody. I still am a nobody. So I identified him through his aura of mastery, but I didn't even know what that meant. Now, many, many years later, I was a tier 1 operator instructing on a tier 1 selection course, the entire sequence. And from the young guy who identified aura of mastery or aura of character, I was then a guy who was looking for it specifically within individuals for the same thing that I didn't understand many years ago. Life is a journey of learning. Life is a journey of evolution. To understand character at 20 and then understand it at 30 and 40 and 50 and 60 is a completely different equation, a completely different understanding. So I was privileged enough to be around enough characters that at some point in my life, I had to assess characters. But that's not normal. My trajectory was not normal. I don't think Mick's trajectory was normal, nor was Jason's. And so we've all been privileged to show up as the noob, being mentored by characters to one day eventually be determining other characters.
That's fascinating. Jason, yeah, what do you got?
Yeah, and it's funny as you talk about growing older. Something that I've found is, I'll call it a hobby at this point, but purposely making yourself a noob in something. You kind of start to crave it a little bit, because once you understand the process, going into and taking on something new and being the new guy, there's something about that you either get to the point where you say, this isn't for me, or hey, this is something that I want. But being that new guy, everybody kind of fears it, but to me at this point, I'm almost 40, and I like it. I like putting myself in that. In my community, a lot of guys are guns and tactics, and you should be out shooting all the time. And I just recently went out and got myself a golf coach, and it's something I've done and I enjoy. But finally admitting that I am the new guy, and then going and being able to, instead of just walking out on the course and figuring it out like everybody else does, I'm like, nope, I am the new guy. I need somebody to kind of help me through this process and be wrong and do things wrong and go through that learning process. I like it, and I crave it at this point. So.
Yeah, that's fantastic. Mick, what do you got?
Yeah, just a quick one. And I'm just jumping on Jason's thing there, which is great. I'm actually not 27. I'm 65. Shock horror. But the two people I really look up to at the moment, one's 69 and one's 72, I think, purely because of we're getting into the situational awareness type world. And they're the two people who, one are older than me, so I've got more experience that I can take as much knowledge from what they know, if that makes, because they're a guy called Lofty Wiseman, you may have heard of, who's the go-to person for situational awareness, and the other lad is a guy called James Johnson, who actually teaches my daughter all the breakaway stuff for when we teach kids and stuff like that. So I think being the new kid doesn't stop when you get older. So it's great. I wish I was sporty again, Jason, to be honest. But even at 65, you know, you're still looking for them people that can, you know, mentor you, if that makes sense.
100%. We talk about putting on a new white belt pretty often here, of just being that new guy. And I recently started Muay Thai as a additional thing for me just to learn. And I realized, I was talking to a friend of mine about this, was the fact that it's the jumps in learning, like the amount of information that you're taking in as a new guy, they're just massive. Whereas when you're established in whatever field it is for a long time, your levels of progression are much smaller, much finer. You're getting more nuanced pieces that are kind of adding into what you know. But being new again, you're just like, you're taking it all in, and all of it's awesome, and it's all amazing. And I think that's just a great point. Any other thoughts on any of this? Shaun, you got anything else? No? Okay, well, let's jump
just that I've got a Lofty Wiseman book up on my bookshelf, and last time I tied on a white belt was when I was 52, 9 years ago, so that I could start BJJ, and I've been doing martial arts for over 40 years. So I guess my point would be that I remember reading Lofty's book ages ago and thinking, wow. And now I read it and I think, nice. And so I'm not overwhelmed by things that blew me away when I was a young guy. What I am now is much more appreciative of the sophistication or the nuance or the real details within the message that I missed when I first read it. And so that's life, man. I've got 40 odd years of martial arts. Doesn't make me a great martial artist. It just means that's a game that I've played for a long time, along with a bunch of other games that I play. And so within our games, there's always an opportunity to flippity-doo-dah it and grab a new white belt for the moment and see how long you can hang on to that. I'll no doubt start another white belt moment in my martial arts game, maybe a few years from now. Who knows what it'll be? But it'll be something that'll teach me something. And that's probably the most important lesson in life, is the more white belts you can tie on, the more you're aware of the big world around you.
On that note, let's jump into this video and take a look.
Grow in proportion to the weight you take on voluntarily. And it's also true that we have no idea what the upper limit to that is, right? So, you know, you've met remarkable people in your life. People can do remarkable things, and there are inevitably people who took on remarkable burdens. And because they did that, their development was forced by necessity. They were forced by necessity to grow beyond what they were. And who knows what the limit to that is? A little of the poison that kills you will redeem you. Look upon that which you fear and grow. Right? That's the definition of growth. That's how you learn. You go out on the edge and you look at something poisonous and you get stronger. Right? And so God thinks, well, I'm not going to get rid of the snakes, but I'll make the Israelites stronger. And you asked why we have a challenge in front of it. It's like, we're here to become stronger. We're not here to be protected. And you get stronger in proportion to your willingness to look at what terrifies you. Find something difficult to do. You need that. You're not built for comfort or pleasure. Like, if that comes along, good. You know, if you have a day where you're comfortable and there's some things around you that give pleasure, have some sense and enjoy it. But don't be thinking that's what your life is aimed at. That's contemptible. Everyone knows that.
Bam. Let's get some thoughts. Jason, what are you thinking?
Yeah, I think I love Jordan. He's awesome. I just really like the kind of overall, you know, the growth from necessity, and doing hard things. It really kind of goes back to what we were just talking about. You know, the going out and being intentional about your journey, whatever it is. You know, some people that I've met through my recovery journey is some of the strongest people I've ever met. And it was out of necessity, and there was tons of growth as you kind of watch them and learn from them. You kind of, when you look for it, you kind of, once you've gone through it, then you look around and you think, I mean, that guy's found a way to grow. You can always tell. It's like the whole superhero type thing is you look at their past, their backstory, and there's the dark place that they came from. Using that for the motivation, but the growth from necessity is what I really like, is when you finally look at it and say, I just can't stay here. It's if I do what I've always done, I'll get what I always get. And then going out and finding the things that are hard in order to challenge yourself, in order to actually grow. I've heard the catching up I've tried to do with your guys' show, Shaun, I hear you talk about a lot, is that motivation from that 30-second clip that you see, and saying, okay, I'm going to go out there and I'm going to grow, and I'm going to, because of something that I heard, and sometimes that'll start that down that road of motivation, but that necessity and that want to see the growth in you, and then see what that does for the people around you, I think it really speaks volumes to the development of your character because of the path that you chose.
This made me think of something just kicked in my head here, is the fact that hindsight is 20/20, but I think a lot of people don't even bother looking to begin with. So I think this is key to what we're talking about. Mick, you got thoughts on this?
Yeah, it's funny because being English, I haven't got a clue who these people are in this in the video clips, apart from Musk, if that makes sense. A slight disadvantage, but that last clip, just about every military person could relate to that, because in the military everything's a challenge, or you want to try and challenge yourself, I suppose, and we always find that the characters come to the fore when you get into that comfort zone, and you just think, actually, I want to do something different. So they go and volunteer, go and do the parachute regiment, go and do commando, go and do SAS selection, or SEAL team, or deltas, or whatever. It's life is a challenge, slightly different in the civilian world, I suppose. And the reason being is, civilians now are not the same as what they were 20 years ago. So for a challenge for them is probably walking down the shop, so it's trying to equate, really, from a military mindset of really challenging yourself, putting yourself at risk. Why am I climbing that mountain? Because it's there, is a challenge. We're just growing up at the moment in a society where a challenge is not really taken too happily, if that makes sense. And it's just the way people are, the way the world's going at the moment, which is sad to see. But certainly a very military minded chat. What was the guy's name? Jordan something, is it?
Jordan Peterson.
Yeah, brilliant. A little thing like that, and I like the guy straight away just because of what he was saying, if that makes sense. But every military guy will equate to exactly what he's saying. Slightly different in the civilian market, I think.
Yeah. Shaun, what do you think?
I was thinking about this on my ride yesterday. Just the guests may not know, but anyone who's listening may not know this. I've been racing mountain bikes for over 25 years, and ultra endurance racing, so 24-hour solo mountain bike races. And I used to be a world champion in it. That's not how I started out, though. I started out as a noob who knew nothing about riding a bike, generally speaking. I didn't know what to eat, what to drink, how to do it. And so then I became a world champion. And then I just kept on racing. I've been riding and racing a long time. I used to race single speeds, rigid single speeds, which to anybody who's listening means that's really freaking hard. And the reason that I chose that is because it's the hardest way to race. The hardest. There is no harder racing on a bike than 24-hour solo, single speed, rigid, hardtail mountain bike. That's it. That's all. It's like the nuclear option of difficult. And so I chose that because it is the nuclear option. And I take satisfaction in doing things that are super duper hard. Now, couple of years ago, I grabbed an electric mountain bike to be able to see what that was all about. And I rode it for nearly 2 years. That was my white belt moment, where I started riding an electric mountain bike that had big suspension and all kinds of widgets on it that allowed me to ride really fast and really hard. And then a couple of weeks ago, I got a flat tire in it and I decided I'm going to jump back on my single speed. And I've been riding that single speed now for a couple of weeks, and it has been crushing me. Crushing me. It is so freaking hard. Yesterday on my ride, I packed it in. I was halfway up a mountain, and I got off the bike, leaned on it, watching the drool come off my goatee, and thought, man, that just broke me. I can't go any further. Now, I could go further, but I chose not to because I was on the edge of being broken. So I turned around and headed back down the mountain and enjoyed the rest of my ride. And I'm saying all of that because anyone who knows me would know me as like a world champion 24-hour solo mountain bike racing individual within that industry. But anyone who doesn't know me would have seen me yesterday suffering like a dog and cracking and having to kind of quit and turn around and head back home. That's not what people expect of me, to quit in that moment. They expect me to keep on top of the mountain, tag it, turn around, be magnificent and do that thing. But that's not how life works, man. What you did and what you do today are two different things. If you're a hard ass, if you're a hard nut, if you think that you can kick ass for the rest of your life, good luck. Life is going to kick your ass if that's your attitude. It's our job to tie in as many white belts as we can, put ourselves into the grind, see if it breaks us, and when it does, learn from it. But if you're not pushing hard enough to break from time to time, get some cracks in the armor, as it were, you ain't doing it right. You're taking the easy way, as far as I'm concerned. Now, is that a strong message? Probably. But that's my message, is everyone's got more in them, and it's our job to see what we've got in us.
You got something, Jason?
Yeah, I did. You cut out there. So yeah, I like all of that, Shaun. But I think that the way I look at it is you're at that level of, kind of like we were talking about the mastery at that level. When we're talking about, building character and doing hard things and, kind of a mixture of all the things that we've talked about, today. You kind of also have to be careful with the people that are, I'm training for a marathon. I'm training for a triathlon. I'm training to ride up a mountain. They're always putting on a white belt, and I think that, to make it the correct journey, that you have to reach a certain level, in whatever it is that you've chosen to, that you've decided to put that belt on. So, there's a lot of people that appreciate that. That's as saying, okay, you've reached this level in that particular discipline or what, the thing that you've chosen. But be cautious of those because people can put off that persona of, no, this guy's a jack of all trades, or he does all these things. But at what level does he do those things? At how far past white belt did he get in all of these things that he did? And I think that's, sometimes where people lack the ability to say, let me look a little bit deeper into this guy's resume or this guy's, things that he's saying that he's done as well. How well did he do them, and at what level did he struggle, and how far did he go down that path?
We had a discussion on this a little while ago. It's the difference between people who are a mile wide and inch deep versus the people that are mile deep, inch wide, kind of thing. So I like this. Mick, you got any thoughts on that?
No, I think the guys have hit the nail on the head, I suppose. And that was an interesting toe you mentioned there, Shaun. And I suspect that if you were still living in Barnsley, you'd have got up that hill.
I have no doubt. And I wanted to say earlier before my mic cut out was the fact that it shows a lot of character in that moment to kind of mark where you are too. Be like, yeah, okay, if I keep going, I'm I'm gonna break, I'm gonna hurt myself, like all these bad things could happen. Let's check it and come back down without and it doesn't do anything to your character to do that. Now, if you were 3 days into mountain biking and you went up your first hill and were like, okay, no, I'm done, I'm going back, that's a sign of character as well. So what do you got, Shaun?
Jason, you're right to reel me back in for the entire demographic. I know that there's a demographic out there that will understand what I was saying, and there's a demographic that it will lead them astray to some degree. Now that I've said that, I also want to encourage everyone to be led astray and get a little bit of a crack in your armor. And I know that that's like, I'm not being disingenuous. I'm just saying that you'll heal up. Life is a grand experiment, a grand adventure. And the scuffs that you get, the scars that you get, the ragged edges that you bump up against, these things are good. Breaking a leg sucks, man, but it's not the end of the day. The day will continue on. And so I'm not asking anyone to do anything dangerous, but I am saying that we've all got a little bit more in us, and it's our job to see what is in us. And if we bump up against a rough edge from time to time, I'm okay with that. But Jason's message, the spirit of his message is right. I'll reel it in a little bit and say, don't go as hard as I've gone, maybe. I don't know. But I think we all can go pretty hard. And to Mick's point, you're right. I think I might have made it up that hill in Barnsley.
Well, maybe the hills in Barnsley are a little less steep than the ones out in Rossland. But this has been a fantastic conversation, boys. I really, really enjoyed this. Jason, Mick, Shaun, really enjoyed talking with y'all. It actually made me think of what makes a really good pair of jeans. Character. They have to be worked in. They have to be scuffed up. They have to have little frills on them and frays on them and stuff. That's what makes a really good pair of jeans. I think it makes a good person is when you have all those showing. So let's get some final thoughts on character in general. Anything still bubble in the back of your brain or anything at all? Mick, I'm going to start with you. What do you think?
Nothing should be a drama, if that makes sense, and life just hit you sometimes quite hard, and really how you sort of roll with it will either make or break you. The reason I say that, I snapped my ankle quite young, had it pinned, was told, you can't parachute. What do? Go on a paracourse just to prove people wrong. Walked around the Falklands with a pin in my ankle that went really gammy, told to come off, totally ignored that, continued, finished the thing. Went on SES selection twice with a pin in my ankle. So nothing really should be a drama. Okay, you get the hits and everything else, but your character should be able to beat whatever's thrown at you if you allow it, because it's too easy to take the easy option. Life is a challenge, and just go with it. And if you're in your comfort zone, just try and do something different, just to get that fear factor, if that makes sense, because that is a fantastic way of defining your personality and also your character. It's been a pleasure coming on here, guys. I really appreciate the invite. Thank you very much.
Absolutely. We'll have to get you back on soon. Jason, final thoughts?
Yeah. So Shaun, first of all, I think the point I was trying to make was you had achieved a particular level, and that was I did appreciate that. My caution was towards people that kind of try to emulate people that never actually achieve anything. They just continually put on that white belt, or they continually, hey, I'm training for this new hard thing, but they're really just, it's like the guy that goes to college and just changes his degree every couple of years because starting over at the easy credits is easy. But it can appear that I'm trying to shoot down a path that's, I'm doing a hard thing. So I wasn't trying to take any credit from you.
I dig it.
So, but yeah, that was the point that I was trying to make on that. Yeah, I think Mick said it best, and I'll kind of just stick with that and leave it there. Is getting outside your comfort zone, and really just testing yourself. I mean, that's, you know, when it really comes down to it, like I said at the beginning, you know, when you get to a point where you got nothing left, there's no other way to get through what you're trying to get through. The things that you've put in that bag, that character bag, is what's going to get you through, and then constantly refining that and figuring out where that edge is, and then pushing that edge out further and further. It shows you how far you can go, and then it also allows you to speak on it to other people, and let them see what that says about you and your character.
That's a great point. Shaun, final thoughts?
Yeah, this one's a pretty easy final thought. It's not like I had it lodged in the bank. It's just a real-time thought as I'm flowing through this conversation. And it's an easy one to make because the panel kind of makes it for me. Character, and these fellas obviously have character. I think character is defined through adversity, through hardship, through testing your mettle, as it were. That's developed over a long period of time for sure. But who we are on the day, that's when we're testing our character through the hard thing we're doing that day. That's how we know who we are in that day, who's showing up that day. We can have our own idea of who we are, but that idea is worth the square root of 0 until we test against that idea by putting it to a little bit of feet to the fire. So every day I'm testing who I think I am through either physiological means, psychological means, or emotional means. If that means I got to pick up a really freaking hard book and read and see what I'm all about that day, then that's what I'm doing. If it's on a bike, then that's what I'm doing. If it's martial arts, that's what I'm doing. Everyone has a way to see who's showing up that day. Don't ever untest yourself. Your job is to test yourself.
Man, I'm hitting the button and it's not turning off. This is my bad. Apologize, everybody. I was going to say that it goes directly into what we have written right up here. Every moment, do your best every day. I think that's the basis of character right there. And again, I can't thank you guys enough. This has been a fantastic conversation. So as we all continue to learn, build, and grow, we'll see y'all next week.